Welcome to the video. Hi, my name is Autumn. I'm a reader and a writer, and today I'm introducing my new TBR game. This new reading series is going to be called the R-gorithm Game. Before you click away, before you panic, let me explain it. I'm essentially going to be using math to choose my TBR every 2 months. I'm really excited for this game, and I have thought long and hard about it, have done tons of behind the scenes preparing for this, and I really wanted to do it because I love reading, I love data, I love statistics, and I thought, why not mix up all of my loves into one and be obnoxious with it on the internet? So here we are. Before you click away, before you're like, this is not for me, I promise you do not need to know anything about coding or anything about any type of computer program to enjoy the video, to enjoy the game. So go ahead and grab your favorite beverage and let's just vibe out. I am going to leave the guidelines/rules in the description if you're like me and you need more of a visual of them. The simplest form of what you need to know about this is R-Studio. That's what we're going to be using. That is how I came up with the name, which is R-gorithm Game. I know, I was extremely proud of it. I thought it was, very original, very creative. But at its most basic form, I'm going to give the computer instructions and it's going to do all the thinking for me. Okay, that's all you need to know. That's it. I am going to feed R all of the books that are on my TBR, physical on the shelves, and my library TBR. And it's going to randomly select books based off of the codes that I'm going to give it. I spent entirely too much time creating a giant Excel spreadsheet with all of the books that I own on my physical shelves, some of the books on that library TBR that I have talked about in another video, which I will leave linked if you want to see which books are on that list. And I do have some audiobooks on this list as well. I'm not going to go through this because I feel like if we went through this piece by piece in this video, it's just going to feel like a lot of information and way too much that I don't think you need to really understand what's happening here. I'm not teaching you R. I'm doing R and you're just vibing with me being like, yep, those are the books. That's what the codes say and that's what the computer program says to do. Now let's move into the guidelines. I kind of contemplated calling them rules. That's why earlier I was like rules, kind of, because this is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to get me to read the books that are on my physical TBR that I can get from the library. It's to prioritize all of those books over, running out to the store to buy new books, do all of those things that require money. I still want this game to be fun. That's why I'm calling them more guidelines. I do better with a little bit of structure, a little bit of guidelines than really strict, concrete, like yes or no, you can do this, you can't do that. This, again, it's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be here for a great time. When things are way too rigid, it just gets stressful. And this is not supposed to be stressful because I'm not going to stress myself out for a yay or nay or some gray area. There might be some gray area, but you know what? If there is gray area, I am going to be the judge of it and I'm going to choose which way I'm gonna go. These guidelines are loosey-goosey. We're going to be very flexible with them. It is subject to change. So how it's going to work is I'm going to run 4 different codes. And before we get into it anymore, I'm gonna stop us there and say that these 4 codes I'm turning into shuffles. Because I feel like when I say, oh, I'm gonna run the R code for this, or let's run the code, running the code just sounds very techie, very math, and less fun, right? So we're gonna call it shuffles. So I'm gonna be doing 4 shuffles, aka running the codes, and we're doing these 4 shuffles every 2 months. I'm only choosing 4 books because I am a hella mood reader and I feel like if I say 4 books in a month or 8 books in 2 months, that's just entirely too much. We're starting small because the whole point of this series is to read down the books that I physically own. 4 books could be like 2 books a month or something like that. That is very doable for my lifestyle, for where I'm at currently. So that's why we're doing 4 shuffles. For every video, that first shuffle is always going to be my priority TBR for 2026. If you don't know what books those are, I will leave that video linked up here and down below so you can check out what books are always going to be on that list. And of course, every time I do this shuffle, that is going to get smaller and smaller. That's the idea. A few little things. If the algorithm spits out a code or we do a shuffle and I get a book that's an anticipated release and the book's not out yet, I can do 2 things. See if that author has another book that I own, or if I can get another book from this author from the library and I want to read this book, I can do that, and that will fulfill that shuffle. If I don't own a book by this author, or I've read some of the backlist or all of the backlist of the author, I can just reshuffle. If I get a series pick and the book is like the second, third, or fourth book in a series and I haven't read that book, we're gonna automatically default it to the first book in that series. No reshuffling, we're just defaulting it to the first book, because it wouldn't make sense if I got Rule of Wolves selected and I haven't read King of Scars. So I would default it to be reading King of Scars instead of Rule of Wolves. Duplicate author. If for 2 shuffles I get the same author, but it's like 2 different books by this author, I can do a reshuffle. If you're anything like me, sometimes you need a break from an author, or maybe they have a really chunky book and you're like, listen, I'm not gonna be able to read 2 chunky books in these next 2 months. I'm gonna reshuffle. I'm calling it now, but that's going to be subject to the book, the series, the genre, the author. Now, I do have a life happens clause. Some months are better than others. Sometimes some phases of life are better than others. Sometimes mental health is there, sometimes physical health is there, sometimes it's not for either, or, you know, just personal things happen. So I have a clause in here. If I end up not reading a book that was in this shuffle, I can roll it over to the next 2 months TBR only once. If I don't get to the book within those next 2 months, that book is going to go back into the pool with all of the other books, and we'll go from there. I don't want to spit out what I will or won't do with that particular book, because I feel like we can go a few different avenues with that. At its simplest form, if I get a book in this video, I don't read it by the time I come back to you with episode 2, that book can roll over. However, if I come back to you in episode 3 and that book's not read, he's just going to go back onto the shelves. And we can worry about what's going to happen with that later. So the algorithm chooses a particular book. I start reading the book, I don't like the book, and I DNF it. There's no reshuffling. I am not going to reshuffle for a 4th book. That book is just going to end up being a DNF. This is subject to change. I feel like it makes it a little flexible, and it makes it like less stressful. I'm going to keep that how it is right now, but of course that is subject to change like anything else in this video. The final rule before we're going to jump over to my computer and run those 4 codes is a backlist rule. So once every quarter, I'm going to do a backlist shuffle. My backlist is going to be 2024 and before that. So we're not going to be doing a backlist spin for this video, but keep an eye out for episode 2 because we're gonna do a backlist spin then. All right, so let's go ahead and pop over to the computer and we're gonna run our 4 codes, then we'll come back over here and finish out the video. I wanted to keep this episode, this concept and everything very simple. I already typed out all of the codes. I know this is gonna look super sketchy and you're gonna be like, Autumn, you faked us out. I didn't. Just trust me. Just this first one, I am telling R where to find my Excel spreadsheet, which is what this code is. For our first shuffle, you know, running the code, this is going to be our priority shuffle. So then shuffles 2, 3, and 4 are going to be here. Eventually, my idea for this is to have where I'm typing the codes on the screen and we all somewhat are on the same page. Like, you get it with me, but I felt like if I was typing it out and explaining it, I felt like it was too techy, it was too complicated. Information overload all in one episode, all in one video. For this video, I was just super simple, or at least I tried to make it super simple for all of us. I can make these shuffles way more specific, and that's what my goal is for future videos. In the future, what we can do is we can be very specific about what books we want to shuffle and get. So for 2, 3, and 4, it's all gonna just be very random. What I hope to do in the next video is, let's just say I want to do a sci-fi shuffle. So there's a way for me to add codes in there where it's only going to pick the sci-fi books that I haven't read. Or let's just say I want to read a series, you know, I want to start a new series. I can make it more specific. Right now, it's just all very vague and it's more broad. I haven't ran any of these codes. They should work, but I was scared easier to run them because once I run them and it selects books, if I run it again, it's going to show me different books. I didn't want to run it by myself to make sure that all the codes work, or like the shuffles work right, and then like redo them and get different books, and then we're all confused. So what we're gonna do here is I am going to, first I'm gonna save it. So what I'm gonna do up here is I'm gonna knit it, and it's going to bring it into a nice pretty window where it's very easy for all of us to see like what the books are. If there's any type of error or anything, it's going to tell me at the bottom. Just ignore this error. That was from earlier when I was playing around with it a few weeks ago. Let's go ahead and we're gonna knit it and see what books are chosen. Okay, so it picked the books. When this window comes up, it means it worked, which is always a great way to determine if you fucked up or not. Okay, so let's see. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to be doing blind reactions to the books that were picked. And then I'm gonna hop back over to the chair behind me, and then we're gonna talk about the 4 books that were chosen. So for our priority shuffle, I got a book that I'm really excited for. I'm actually really glad that this book was picked. For shuffle number 2, oh my god. Shuffle number 2 was mean. Shuffle number 3, okay, I'm not mad about it. And then shuffle number 4, oh my god, okay. Shuffle number 4 is just obnoxious. So those were the 4 shuffles. Let's go ahead and stop with the anticipation and pop back over and chat about the books. So the first book that we got for the first shuffle is The Cat Who Saved Books by Suzuki Nasagawa. I don't think that's how you pronounce the author's name. I am fairly certain I butchered that. So this book was a gift from a family member a few years ago, and I've always wanted to read it. It's so cute. It reminds me of my cat Crash, even though he looks nothing like this cat. But so it's a Japanese translation, and it's a celebration of books, cats, and the people who love them. Awkward teenager Rentaro is about to close the second-hand bookshop he inherited from his beloved grandfather. Shutting down Nasuki Books will be no easy task. It's been his sanctuary from both school and the world. But before the bookshop's doors close for good, a talking cat suddenly appears with an unusual request: his help. And it won't take no for an answer. The world is full of lonely books left unread and unloved, and the cat and Rentaro must liberate them from their neglectful owners. So it sounds so cute. I have been really wanting to read this book, so it's on the list. Book 2 is just rude, okay? I don't know how I'm gonna do this. This is probably going to be a great example of a book that's going to get carried over once and probably thrown back into the pool because it's just rude. It's rude. And it's The Priority of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I know nothing about this. I just know it's a chunker, and I don't do good with chunkers. I thought that this author just came out with a second book in the series, but I think it's like a prequel. But this says the House of Bernathet has rolled in us for 1,000 years. Still unwed, Queen Sabran the Ninth must conceive a daughter to protect her realm from destruction, but assassins are getting closer to her door. Iad Duran is an outsider at court. Though she has risen to the position of lady-in-waiting, she is loyal to the hidden society of mages. She keeps a watchful eye on Sarban, secretly protecting her with forbidden magic. Across the dark sea, Tanae has trained to be a dragon rider since she was a child, but is forced to make a choice that could see her life unravel. Meanwhile, the divided East and West refuse to parley, and forces of chaos are rising from their sleep. So I've heard that this is a phenomenal book. Even though it's like a super chunky book, it keeps you really hooked. From what I've heard, it's not a book that very slow and it's like you have to just stick with it. I've heard that it's a pretty evenly paced book, if that makes any sense. Well, it's book 2 on here, so I guess we'll see what I do in a couple of months. fuck. The next one that I picked, which I'm super excited about because it actually is another Priority TBR book. I wasn't expecting to read it anytime soon, but it is Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. Thought this cover was amazing, so that's why I really wanted to prioritize it this year, but it's an exquisitely moving story about grief, love, and family, but especially love. I am pretty stoked. I've never read a Sally Rooney. And lastly, the book that I'm really upset about, and in full transparency, I don't want to read this book. I really don't. I honored the shuffle. I'm so not wanting to read this book. And why is this book on the list if I don't want to read it? Well, it was there as the lowest priority book on the list, and it got chosen because of course it did. But nonetheless, it's Nicholas Sparks's The Lucky One. Is that the one I picked? I don't feel like it was. Okay, yeah, sorry, it was. I had a split second panic where I was like, did I grab the right one? But yeah, it's The Lucky One by Nicholas Sparks. I've watched the movie and I think I might like it. I'm not in the mood to read a Nicholas Sparks, probably ever. But I guess this will be my first one because I've never read another book by this author. I've only watched the movies. These are the 4 books that were chosen in violence by the R-gorithm game. So stay tuned for episode 2 because episode 2 I will briefly talk about like a yay or a nay if I do end up reading these books and what we're going to do in the next video. These are the books that this game picked that I have to read for the next 2 months. We're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see where life brings us. Full transparency, I will probably not finish this in 2 months. I just don't see that happening. So it's probably gonna be one that gets rolled over. However, I'm still going to have to choose 4 books. It doesn't roll over and take the place of. I don't think I said that earlier, but I wanted to clarify that. So that is everything for this video. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you stick with me through this new series that I'm really excited about, that I think will kind of bring a little fun little challenge to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.